We would like to start this evening with a land acknowledgement. I recognize that I live, work, and play on unceded traditional land. I reside on the land of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, the Mississaugas, and Neutral. As an uninvited guest in this land, I have the responsibility to learn more about its history, to honor and amplify indigenous ways of being. As an educator and a mom, I have the commitment to decolonize my educational practices and curriculum and works every day towards truth and reconciliation. When we talk about colonization, we might think that it's a phenomenon of the past, but today we're witnessing colonization unfolding in real time. We have witnessed the genocide and violent actions deployed against indigenous people in Palestine and the commitment from the settler state to their erasure. Similar actions that indigenous people in Canada experienced in the formation of Canada as a nation state. As I'm saying this, thousands of students across Turtle Island have taken over university campus to demand for a permanent ceasefire in the genocide and demand to their institutions to end the complicity in the genocide of Palestinian people. This speaks volumes on how we, the people, have the power to alter the course of history once we identify and understand the social and economic systems we are in. As I offer this land acknowledgement with the intent to show how grateful I am to live here, I invite you to learn more about how capitalist, white supremacist, imperialist Western nations depend on the exploitation and oppression of Indigenous, Black, and people of color for their survival. So we have a very exciting evening ahead of us today.
Tonight, we would like to welcome Jade and Grace and Lish to speak with you as they are recent graduates from different programs. And Camila and I are lucky enough to call them friends. And so we are very grateful to have them join us this evening. Jade is going to start us off, followed by Grace and then Lish.
Hi, everyone. It's really, really exciting to be here. My name is Jade Lillace, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm noticing now that Zoom took it out of my name again, but I will add it back in. My pathway to being a registered early childhood educator in Ontario has not been super linear. I first worked in a formal childcare environment in a nonprofit center 12 years ago, but had always worked with and around children forever. And I don't know how many people here can relate, but I had a parent who worked with young children. And so I always did all those aptitude tests in high school, and it would say, you should be a teacher, you should work with children. And I was like, oh no, when I have my own kids, I won't want to work with other people's children. I don't know why I thought that. So instead of going to school to work with young children, I moved from Canmore, Alberta to Ottawa, Ontario, and I pursued a Bachelor of Humanities degree instead with a minor in law. And I completed my undergraduate in Ottawa and lived in England for a year. And after completing that, I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do? Where do I go from here? What kind of skills do I have? And I waitressed and nannied, and through nannying, decided to go back to school to pursue formal training as an early childhood educator. And I started the not most cost-effective way by taking individual courses while I was nannying, because I thought, oh, I'd like to learn more. I'm working with these children, but there's an entire field of study around this. And so I do one course through one semester, one course the next semester, a couple the next semester. And my nanny family, they were a military family and they were moving. So at that point I thought, oh boy, I have 5 courses towards an ECE diploma. And I decided to do the intensive ECE program at Algonquin College in Ottawa also, which was a 1-year, 2-semester course. And after that, I worked in full-day kindergarten for 3 years in Ottawa. And for many reasons, I felt that I didn't have a long-term career as an ECE for the school board. I also worked in some for-profit centers and not-for-profit centers, and also nannying in the summers because I did not have a full year contract as an ECE with the school board, so I had to piece together employment. And I knew I needed something else, something more, something different, something where I felt more valued, where I had higher pay. And I decided to move to what is colonially known as Toronto, to attend Toronto Metropolitan University to do the Master's in Early Childhood Studies program, which I just completed in June, almost a year ago now. And I had my convocation in October. I'm now working as a research officer for the Child Care Resource and Research Unit. So that's kind of a broad sweeping view of how I ended up where I am and where I am now. I'm very excited to hear from the other panelists. Thank you.
Wow, that's fascinating, Jade. Thanks so much for sharing. Love that. Grace, do you want to introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about how you've come to be where you are now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. Okay, Jade, thanks so much. I love hearing about everybody's experiences, and we really appreciate that, I think. So I'm Grace. I go by she, her pronouns. Hold on, I'm just going to pull up my notes here. Okay. Yeah, so I started, I guess my journey in ECE started back in 2018 when I attended Sheridan College for my ECE diploma program. I knew at that time when I attended the program that I really enjoyed being around children and I wanted to work with children. But I didn't have, going into the program, I didn't have the logistics and the specifics of the field. So I was really excited to attend the program. And my older sister, I gained a lot of motivation from her because she is also an ECE. So when I did go into the ECE program, I found that I learned a lot and I soaked in a lot of stuff and really engaged with the knowledge that was sort of handed to us in the diploma program, stuff like child development and observation and pedagogical documentations, a lot of those mainstream ideas, theories, and theorists. And I found that while all of this really helped to build my knowledge as an EC, I really found a lot of my growth ended up happening when I bridged into the the degree program at Sheridan, which was called the Bachelor of Early Childhood Leadership there. And so I was in that for another few years, and I did find I was asked to question and be curious and critical of some of the stuff that we sort of take for granted in the field and some of the stuff that is really pushed more mainstream. And so we really delved deeper into the meaning of teaching and learning with children. So we sort of got that chance to explore the political side of ECE and recognize that how our actions in the classroom can be considered political. So the ways that we teach and the stances we take and the view we have of childhood as a whole. And while by no means was this program perfect, nor was the ECE diploma, I think I came out of both of them with a really well-rounded view of EC, and I think I do feel very grateful for the opportunity to have experienced both. And I do believe both programs really helped me learn and grow, and I know that I still have lots of learning and growing to do as I move as an educator throughout the field and my years to come. And actually, while I was at Sheridan, I also did work with many other students to form an advocacy club there as well. And I really did enjoy engaging with students in that manner, and having that opportunity to connect and ask questions about the field. And that's why I really, really appreciate this space today. I think it can be sometimes really hard to sustain an advocacy space in post-secondary institutions, at least in my experience, but I think it's really important to have these conversations and to make community and to advocate for ourselves, because as educators, we know the realities of the field, but we all deserve to feel safe and welcome. So since graduating 2 years ago, I know when I first started to think about going into the field, I had a lot of anxiety and fear still. And even after 4 years, I still felt really, really unprepared. So I had a lot of questions about how do I effectively talk to parents, or how do I approach conflict situations? How do I validate children's emotions, but also maintain safe boundaries? And how do I, in general, be a good ECE? And so many more questions. And I think what I really needed to give myself was time and space to experience the field as a new educator and make my own judgments in the classroom. And so I found that a lot of that knowledge, even as a new educator, still comes from just learning and growing with the other educators around you, learning and growing with the children, and taking sort of each day as they come. And so since graduating, I have been at the same center for 2 years now, and it has been such a blessing to be there. I love going into work every morning. I'm excited and happy to see each and every child in my care. I really do have such a loving and supportive team and working environment, and I know that is not always the reality with all centers, and that's why I do feel very grateful that I've found a place that I feel very welcomed, and that I felt very welcomed when I had no experience, and that they trusted me that I would have the skills to lead a classroom. And yeah, that's where I am now. I did over last summer, I also actually did get the chance to work at the Child Care Resource and Research Unit, and that's where I got to meet Jade. And so it was a lot of fun working there. And again, I don't think I would have felt confident enough to delve into that role without having that experience in my bachelor's program, where we got to talk about those political aspects, because the CRRU does a lot of really great stuff in terms of social and family policy. And I think being able to have experienced that really rounded me even more as an educator, and made me understand that those aspects of EC are just as important to know as an educator in the classroom. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks so much, Grace. Those were great highlights, and I appreciate you being so open about your experience and how you felt. Lish, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. Hi, I'm Lish, like wish, but with an L. That's what I tell the kids I work with. I use they, them pronouns. As you can see in the chat, my bio's there. It's really long, so I will very much elevator pitch it for you, because I'm a talker and I know that. I'm a non-binary, queer, mixed race, insert lots of intersectionalities here, educator, which I think gives me a unique perspective that some other educators might not have. And much like Jade's, mine was not a linear path to being an ECE. I'm actually a DSW originally, which is a developmental services worker. Oh, hi, Eva. I love when people say hi in the chat. So I used to specialize working with people with disabilities and neurodivergence like myself. And I did that at Fanshawe back in I think I graduated 2013. I just look really young. And I worked in any type of care profession that you can name. Like I worked in mental health. I was a program coordinator. I worked as a home care. Like I love taking care of people. I never thought I'd work with kids though. So a lot of people who knew me when I was younger are like, you work with kids, but really enjoy it. I had a really unique opportunity doing a program called Investing in Neighborhoods, which is an Ontario Works program, because when I moved to Toronto, I was really struggling to find work here in Toronto. And that was kind of like a year-long placement. I wasn't a part of AECEO. I got to basically test out what it's like to be an early childhood educator and do all of the job. And Red Apple Daycare, which is a non-for-profit center, really gave me a chance because I had zero experience with kids. I had, like I said, all the different things. I've been in this adjacent sector for like 15 years total. So like I've had a lot of experience working with people, but not tiny humans. And that's kind of different than working with a senior. Kids love that I'm excitable and energetic. Seniors are like, can you slow down and stop? So depending on the population I work with, some of the personality traits I have are asset. So I finished my apprenticeship actually in December. I did it in a year and a half, and most people do it in 5. So that kind of attests to the type of goal setting kind of person I am. When I have a goal, I will get there as quickly as possible. And yeah, so I worked about 30 hours a week while going to school, which is very exhausting. And being neurodivergent, that can be very difficult to be able to do that, but I had a very supportive workplace. Unfortunately, last year I had some medical concerns, and this sector can be very physically and mentally demanding. So I now work for them casual and 4 other places, but I've realized it gives me a really unique opportunity to kind of like interview the places that I'm working and make sure that it's the right fit, because I am very advocacy oriented. People say that I've been an advocate my entire life because I'm that person that will ruffle feathers and be like, I don't agree with this, because I think it's really important to speak up and talk about those things, because if we don't, then things aren't going to change. And if anyone saw my work rally speech last year, I talk about like a lot of the things in the sector we're moving towards, but change takes time. Yeah, and it's been quite a journey, but I feel like that we'll get more into like my experience within like the educational piece and like the next part of the panel. But my educational experience, like I said, I worked with every population from infants to palliative care, and I've been really thankful to do that in my career and learn a lot about helping people in different ways. But I will pass it back on to our facilitators that are hosting so we can get to the next part.
Thanks so much, everyone, for sharing their stories. Hearing everyone just remind me that the path towards EC is never linear. We all have so diverse backgrounds, different, like this so many times is a second career, but who we are as an educator and our commitment to our children and families and dreaming and hoping that a better world is possible is just what drives us, most of us. Lish, I would really like to ask you, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Younger ECE or DSW? Because both of those things, I think I'd give them the same advice.
I would love to hear about your younger DSW, or just for today, just your younger ECE.
Oh, it's interesting because technically that would only be a few months ago. So, but either way, I think it's a lot of self-reflection, right? And one of the most important things I would take away is approach every situation with curiosity and empathy. Like if you come at things with applying it to like every relationship that we develop, because we are in a relationship building field with children, families, other professionals. As you said, we work with so many different people that have different expertise and backgrounds, and it's very co-collaborative. And that at the end of the day, our relationship with ourselves is really one of the most important things, and our well-being, because you should trust your intuition and you should trust your values. And if you're a student, I'd really encourage you to get involved with whatever advocacy group is in your college, university, wherever you're going. And if you don't have one, start one. Because I know that's a lot of what I've talked about in these meetings before is like, find that community if that's something that you're passionate about. And advocates look different in different ways. Like the introvert advocate is just as valuable as the extrovert advocate like myself. Like we bring different things depending on our personalities, depending on our expertise. and that they're all valuable. There's no just thing as a small advocate in a sense. We might just do it a little differently. So I would tell my younger ECE self that yes, you're exhausted, yes, you're tired, yes, you're broke, but you're going to get through. And that there is a whole community behind you that wants to support you, and that keep pushing through, because your goals are important and people like us are important for this sector. Yeah, I think that would be the main things that I would definitely, and then environment is really key. I think that would be the other really important thing, is that if you, like, I was working in a place that was making a lot of money, but the commute was really hard. I didn't align with the same values, and it didn't matter about the money for me. Like, a lot of us are not in it for the money. We're in it because we're passionate about what we're doing and that we love what we do. So that's what makes the difference. When you get up and you go to work, like Grace said, love going to work, that makes a huge difference, and the kids see that. So staying true to yourself and your values makes it better for everyone that you're working with, because like I said, it is a relationship building field. So I would tell myself that trust your gut intuition. It's usually telling you something for a reason. But I will let someone else have a turn.
Thanks so much for sharing. Jade, would you mind answering the same question? What advice would you give to your younger ECE self?
Yes, definitely. I found it to be daunting going into an undervalued, feminized profession. And I remember starting my diploma course, the intensive program at Algonquin College, and our professors were pretty frank with us. And I think I didn't quite realize how many challenges there were for ECEs in the sector until I had enrolled and started the program. And I think what I would tell myself is that the early years sector is constantly evolving. And there are a lot of people advocating for change and growth in the sector. And I didn't always click with all of my instructors or all of the material that I was learning. And I think if I could say this to myself, I would have said that I also had a lot of wisdom to offer. Like, it's not only instructors and course material that is really valuable in your learning, but everyone is bringing their own lived experience to the table. And even if you don't have a lot of experience in early years education, you do have a lot of wisdom and experiences. So trust your instincts and add real world complexity into your work where you can. Challenge information and situations that don't feel right, and know that a career in early childhood education and care doesn't only look this one way. It's not just working with children in a center or with the school board, but a career in ECEC can look many different ways. Thanks, Camila.
Thanks so much for sharing, Jade. Grace, you know the drill already. Do you want to share any piece of advice?
Yes, absolutely. So I know I already sort of echoed this in what I said, but I think a big part of my journey, and I guess I'm sort of saying this to myself when I was sort of in the diploma and I was sort of just digesting everything I was given, that to tell myself to not be afraid to challenge myself beyond what we're taught or what the field deems appropriate and how we should teach and learn with children, because there are so many different diverse approaches and discourses that we are not exposed to as EC students and educators in the field. And for us to just be curious and confront our education and confront the field with a critical lens, because I think we are often told to teach in a certain way, and our curriculum tells us to teach in a certain way. And I think it's just important for us to instill our values and instill what we find most valuable into how we teach and learn with kids. And I think that's something I'm still doing now, something I'm still challenged to do now, because it is really hard to do it in a field where a lot of it is the same. So yeah.
Absolutely. I hear like most of you were saying that trust your instinct, and we all have all of this theoretical knowledge, but at the same time, we were cared for by our parents or caregivers, and we have care for others our whole life. We live in community, we are humans, we depend on each other. And that knowledge that we bring on how to care, how to build relationships, how to be in community, how to collaborate with others, we have to trust that. That's an important piece of knowledge that many times is not recognized by academic institutions as valuable piece to bring together into our curriculum making with children, into building those spaces with children. Thanks so much for sharing, all of you. So now we really want this space to be for the participants to ask any question that you have for the panelists. You can either post it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and have an open conversation. Just like be welcome to share and learn whatever you're curious from the panelists. I don't want to put in, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm a community organizer with the AECEO, but I'm actually very curious for folks to kind of give advice when the placement isn't necessarily one that you feel welcome to, or that you feel like you can bring your whole self to. As a student, that is something that I think is kind of universal. If we've been to many placements, there's always maybe one that you don't feel like you are entirely part of the team, or something like that. What advice would you give someone who's in a placement that seems difficult and isn't as welcoming of themselves as the whole person?
I can take this one, or if people can add as they want. I think this is something I've struggled with as multiple identities that I've had in my whole life, especially being a queer person. Like in our sector, a lot of people get uncomfortable about that, and me being non-binary. They was like, well, what are the kids going to say about your pronouns? I'm like, the kids don't even notice. They just call me Lish. It's usually the adults that have a problem. And I think it's open communication. Like our sector, a lot of it has communication and standing up for yourself in a professional way. Depending on what the context is. If it's something that's unsafe, there is professionals that you should be going to, like your placement liaison or whoever, but not being afraid to stand up for yourself in a professional way. There's been jobs that I've left because I haven't felt like it's the right fit. I've had the privilege to do that because not everyone's able to do that because of finances. But I remember in my DSW placement, I was in one of the school boards, and they were still using the term special needs, which our sector sometimes does as well. And for me as a neurodivergent person, it feels a little icky, for lack of a better word. And I had said something to one of my professors, and they're like, well, that's just the word we use. And then I had another professor that was like, the day that you learn the terms in this class, they'll be outdated tomorrow, and it's your responsibility. So it really depends on perspectives. And I think that being able to find out what you don't want in an environment is just as valuable as knowing what you do want in an environment. So it comes down to like also being able to stand up for yourself, utilizing the team around you. I know that this group is putting together like a placement evaluation. So hopefully when that is done, we'll also have an accountability piece on those placements. But also being able to have those conversations off the floor. So if you're usually trying to have like something's going on, come at it like solution focus and try and do it off the floor. If there is like, I work in preschool a lot of times. DSW is similar to a resource consultant. So a developmental services worker, they specialize in working with people with disabilities. So a lot of my colleagues work as deafblind interveners in ABA group homes, similar to that. So I wanted to answer that question. So it's similar to a resource consultant. A lot of people go on to do resource consulting after mine, or some people do DSW and ECE one before the other. So they do work really well together. But I remember being in placement and being like, can I say anything? Like I knew, like I was only 18, and like your age shouldn't stop you from being like, hey, I don't agree with this. As I've gotten older, I think I've gotten more tenacious with that, but I will definitely let my panelists maybe interject what their experiences have been.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for your question, Jess. I had a placement in an infant room, and my placement supervisor made me cry. And I think there were things that I enjoyed about the placement, but the supervisor and I didn't have a great relationship, and I definitely take issue with unpaid internships, unpaid placements, and in the first place, I felt that my program maybe didn't put as much effort as they could into matching students like with an ideal placement that was like good, even just based on location. And I felt like I really had to advocate for myself. I had a placement location changed because by taking public transit, it was too far for me to commute to it. And you know, with hours in the sector, that they can be really early or really late. And so for people, especially as a student, when you're maybe not working or really tight financially, I felt that there were placements. It adds a lot of extra stress to placements. And then when you also don't have a very supportive supervisor or someone who you don't align with, or maybe you don't appreciate some of the kind of pedagogical decisions in their classroom. I think maybe the only piece of advice that I can pull from this is that in my experience, for my program anyways, I felt that the program was interested in having ECEs graduate from the program, and that at the end of the day, they wouldn't fail you from a placement for complaining or voicing that something didn't feel right. And I hope for all ECEs that if they don't have a great placement supervisor, then they at least have like a liaison person from their faculty that they can turn to. But I would escalate personally if you feel comfortable. Like Lish said, I think because I was a little older when I did my ECE program, I maybe felt more confident doing that. But yeah, hopefully people have better placements than I did.
Thanks for sharing, Jade. I think Maha, your hand is up. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much. It's very important to have this session. I'm very happy to join you. I'm a very fresh graduate. I just finished last week. Thank you. It was amazing 16 months journey. I really enjoyed the program from Sheridan College. I have amazing professors. I had amazing classmates. We are now one family. Thank you, Sarah. And this is very important topic. I will always advocate for placement students. I want, hi, Rafaela, one of my friends here. Yeah, I'm so proud of them. They are really great. But we struggled. As placement students, we really struggled. The first placement, I ended up going to the emergency. I didn't tell them, but I knew that this stress led me to the emergency. I shared with my professor at the end of the placement because I didn't want to create any drama, but it was not a nice experience. They asked me to deep clean one room, complete deep clean. And even their treatment for students was not that good. And the second was a little bit better, but in general, we need to get better treatment as students. We go there with all the passion, with all the engagement, with all the activities. We do our best with everyone there. We welcome them. We say good morning to everyone. And they decide, some of them, to ignore us. So maybe they will say goodbye, X, but I am next to this person and they will not say goodbye or have a great weekend. And these things really, like I will say, I will graduate and I will be your colleague. So we are almost colleagues. I will always want to the mentors to read the mentors' letters, to know what are our responsibilities. Many educators will not read. They will keep asking us, what are your, when are you going to do your activities? And they know that for first placement, we have only, I forgot now how many activities, it's very few. And they will ask us, when is your responsibility day? And then I reply, we don't have responsibility day. What is that? I don't know that there still, we will have this in the third placement. So they keep on like surprising us, or they asked us for first placement to do the circle time. And all the educators will stare at us, or they look at us. So all these experiences, like they were not easy for placement students. I hope that there will be survey at the end of the placement that the college will ask the students to do. And even the training or for educators, that this is how you will treat these students, because I think some students will leave the field at the end because this is the environment. For me, definitely I enjoy working with the children, but these experiences will make me think so carefully about joining any childcare center. I want to be, because 3 placement, I was not 100% sure that this is where I want to work. So I would really appreciate if this is really what we can advocate for future students. I don't want any student to go through this. We need RECEs everywhere. Our job is, it's not one of the most important. It's, in my opinion, after all these studies about child development, observation, pedagogical documentation, competent child, responsive, reflective, it is the most important job in this world, in my opinion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maha. And I think I can speak for everybody to say that, it is heartbreaking to hear that that was your experience. And I hope that you've come out the other side and have connections and people like Rafaela that that you have made a relationship with, because relationships in a caregiving field are so important. And if you can't get them from your placement, I hope that you can find it elsewhere. Thank you so much. Felice?
Hi. So I'm really sorry that that happened to you, Maha. We've experienced that too. A lot of us and my classmates. It's just unfortunate, but I heard that CECE is going to give out a booklet or some sort about mentoring and all that stuff. Hopefully that they do release it soon, because a lot of us need it, and also the mentors too. So my question is, I don't know, I'm just so anxious because I just graduated too, and I got a job. Hooray! But I'm so scared. I don't know. I'm like, I should be happy. I'm done with my program, but I think transitioning to the field and feeling that pressure that you have to know everything, like on the first day. I don't know how you did it. Can you give me tips and advice? Like, I'm so nervous.
You're not supposed to know it all on the first day or like ever. I think if you are at a good workplace, they'll understand that it takes time for you to learn, and they'll be patient with you. And ask lots of questions, right? Just like you did when you were a student. A lot of places, they understand that, and they're patient with that, and they're usually pretty good about that, being like, okay, if they see the initiative is there and you're trying, a lot of places do give you the grace. Nobody's gonna know all the things. Like, I've been in the sector, I was an ECA for many years before I did my ECE. And I still don't know everything. And I have other educational experience, and I still am always learning. We talk about continuous ongoing learning and co-learners. So hopefully your colleagues build that rapport with them and be like, okay, because I always say, like, I'm the kind of person that my intention is always to help, but my impact might not be what I think it's going to be. And that if you build that relationship, like, it always goes back to relationships. We're building those connections and those relationships and that trust. It's a little bit easier, but don't be so hard on yourself. Like, you're not going to have it all figured out on the first day. And really build the relationship with the children, because I think that at the end of the day is one of the most important things, is that if they went home, they're safe, they had a good day, they're happy, like, we did a good job, and that you can at least have solstice in that, knowing that you did the best that you could in that day. And yeah, we're not going to have it all figured out. So give yourself a little bit of grace and self-compassion in those moments and be like, yeah, I don't have to have it all figured out. I'm going to do my best today.
Thank you, Lish. I think, yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Thank you for saying all the right words.
I see a lot of folks are putting comments about their bad, easy experience during their field placements. And we all have those. We all went through that. And that helped us become the ECs that we are today. Because once we identify and we saw those ECs that weren't happy about their work, they weren't happy about mentoring others, we made the commitment that we were not going to be them. That shape who we are, that brings us, every time we have students, we are working with others, that shape that relationship. And that's important too. Once we identify what we don't want to be, we identify the things that we cannot negotiate with. And we find a place that actually want us there, and we can be our most authentic self. And we get like great onboarding programs, and we get to build relationships, and we have great communication with parents, supervisors, and children. Like, we build those spaces for ourselves just because we have, in spite of having those bad experiences in the field placement. That, for me, I have great experience my first 2 field placements, and my third one was, I cry every day. And this educator, she only started being nice with me when she noticed I was pregnant, when my pregnancy started showing. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have any, like, I can hold you in high regard, because just because you are seeing me as a weak, you are being nice to me. I'm sorry, no, that's not the way it's gonna work. But it takes a lot of time finding your ECE voice. I wouldn't advocate for myself at that time. I was fresh, like, I was a freshly immigrant. It was my second year in Canada. I was taking my diploma. It takes a lot of time to build your ECE voice, to understand where you can write, to understand where I can advocate for you, and finding a community where you can be open and say, you know what, this happened to me. What can I do about it? And that's why the COP is here, to guide students, and that's the intent of this space.
I'm going to say, in this particular field, because I was a mature student when I was in placement, and after I graduated, I didn't really have a lot of those experiences. I did have one when I was in kindergarten where she didn't treat me badly, but you could tell she was nervous about being in charge or being my advisor because she was younger than me. And so occasionally she would be short. And when I first noticed it, I made the connection and I thought, I'm just going to let it go. But eventually she was short with me, and I just turned around and I said, "Are you okay?" And I paused and I left the question hang there. And she turned around and I could tell she was upset, like she wanted to call me on asking her that question. But I was just quiet. I was just looking at her, and she kind of sighed and she said, "It's really hard working with a mature student." She said, "I didn't think it would be. But she said, you're older than me. And she said, often I feel like you know more than me. And I said, I think you just see me from the perspective of I'm already a parent and have been for many years of 3 children. And I do a lot in this field. So done a lot of research to be the best parent I hopefully could be. And I said, I get that. I said, but look around. I'm not the smartest person in the room, and that's okay. I surround myself with smart people for a reason. There's a reason I'm friends with Jess and Camila and Lish and Jade and Grace. It's because I learned from them, and I appreciate that. And I said something along those lines to her, and you know, our relationship from then on forward was really great because I gave her permission not to be the smartest person in the room. I told her and acknowledged that I wasn't the smartest person in the room. And it's not always going to work with everybody. There are people that, you know, will continue poor behavior because of fear that maybe you are going to take over their jobs. You know, Maha, you had said, you know, I'm going to be your colleague pretty soon. I'm almost there. I'm on the cusp of graduating. Not everybody feels good about that. Some people are fearful. If Maha is better than me, she may come and take my job, and I need this job. And I'm, you know, maybe they realize that they have some big areas of opportunity. So just keep that in mind, but always stand up for yourself in a strong way without, you know, with calling them out without being rude. I guess if you can do that, I think just that brief question of, are you okay, might get them to stop and think.
I know we have been talking about all the things that we would like to see in our field, and I wonder if any of our panelists wants to share what brought you joy while you were a student, or if you have any memorable experience that you want to share, or if you have any aha moment that shape who you are as an ECE today.
I think um I think in my program, what I enjoyed so much, especially in the diploma before COVID hit, was being in the classroom with all my other EC students and just seeing the different ways that they approach the field and seeing how different all of us are in the field and seeing how cool that really is going to be once we all graduate, how interesting each of us are going to teach and the values that we feel strongly about. And we may not agree with their values, but that's how they are going to be as educators. And I know we'll all learn in the field. And I think I really found a lot of joy being in the classroom with my fellow educators, my fellow colleagues. And I think that's what I missed a lot when COVID hit and everything went online, and we all sort of felt a little disconnected from those fellow educators. And so I really appreciate now being back in the field and learning from everybody in my classroom, because I think that is where a lot of my knowledge comes from. I learn every day from everybody in my center, and I'm learning so much today from all of you here. And I really appreciate all the students that are asking questions in the chat or speaking up about their experiences in the chat and raising their hand and putting their mic on. It is really lovely to see the community we build as ECEs and how we all learn from each other so naturally.
Thank you, Grace.
That's amazing. I have an anecdote that as I reflect on my different ECE programs, that it kind of stands out to me in a hopeful way. I remember during my intensive ECE diploma program at Algonquin that I had this professor, and in some ways he really inspired me and made me think about language that we use with children. And I wrote this paper for his class, and it was about different toileting practices. And I thought it was so cool, and I was so excited about it, and I worked so hard on it, and I thought it was a great paper. and I didn't get the grade that I thought I deserved, or I don't know. I thought that I was learning so much and being innovative, and it didn't land the way I wanted it to. And fast forward to when I did my master's program last year, and I got to write the same paper, like expand on the same topic in a different context with a professor who thought it was a really interesting idea. And then I got to turn it into like a cross-cultural comparison of different toileting practices globally. And getting to do that was kind of an aha moment of, in that moment, I wasn't in the right place and I wasn't in the right time, and kind of hang in there, because not every early years environment is going to be for you. But you will have a moment where, even if you want to research toileting practices, you'll have your time.
Yeah, I think mine kind of piggybacks off that, is like the people that we have around us that really celebrate us and who we are. Like my mentors as an ECA is what empowered me to get my REC. So I was like, I don't want to go back to school for the third time. Like I don't have the money. But if it wasn't for my boss being like, you can do this, and supporting me, I think that's what was my biggest strength. And that's what I took away as a student, is having that support network, and that ability to co-learn and engage in that self-reflection. And it really helped shape who I am and build the strengths that I have as an educator because of that hands-on experience. But also having the like-minded colleagues or different perspectives too. Like I remember I had questioned why we were putting up a Christmas tree, and people were like, oh, you're going to take away the Christmas tree. And I was like, no. And we eventually had a really great dialogue of why we do things, because I'm the person that always questions routine action. And my coworkers at that workplace saw that as a benefit when they got to know me, with the intention versus impact part and part. But I will also say that since I've been in this sector, I do notice that there is a lot of hierarchy within our sector. Like we were kind of mentioning, like people kind of sometimes feel threatened. And I really noticed that as when I was an ECA versus an ECE. But I believe that it's starting to get better. Like a lot of the folks like us are now moving in, and as people with the maybe different or maybe biased values are kind of moving into like retirement. So the sector is really swaying and changing. And that I think their practical experience really brings that theory into practice, like, and questioning those theories, because a lot of them are like a cis white het man that's from like a bazillion years ago. So like I love to see how we're moving forward, and how a lot of our pedagogy and a lot of the theories that we're learning now are coming from a more like cultural based lens. Like Jade was saying, like you got to see like different cultures and bring that in. And I don't think that would have been the same like when I was growing up in the 90s. So it's just really amazing to see where we've come and where we still want to go. But the people who are in these meetings and are having these conversations are the people that are making those changes. So even when you're discouraged, I urge you to stay in this sector, because we're the ones that make that change. And that when we stand together, we're the ones that are able to empower each other to make that revolutionary change, and to really bring about where we want it to go and bring that future.
Thanks so much for sharing, Lish, and everyone who's sharing in the chat such an amazing and inspiring stories. Does anyone wants to open their mic and share or say something?
I really want to thank you again for this amazing session. And please keep it up, keep it going. We need this amazing advocacy. And yeah, I appreciate every discussion we did today, and all the ideas, the amazing ideas we have today. Yeah, and at the end, I feel so proud to get the title of RECE. I didn't know this feeling, but now I didn't get this title yet, but I'm very excited to have it, and my pride is very high. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jani, I see your hand, it's up.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Good evening, all. So I am an RACE that currently works in a program that's primarily South Asian communities. And just wanted to touch on something that Lish was saying regarding the new lens that's coming up. Primarily, we do have a lot of families that enter our early on programs, and I intentionally did this. I just want to mention this because it was on the top of my head. I put a book out, and we would do a rotating of our program every Friday. So I took a book out and it said, "My Two Dads and Me," and I intentionally placed it in the book area. And I was looking over to my coworkers, and I said, both of them who are also from South Asian community as well. And I was like, "What do you think we're going to get the response for this?" And she's like, "I don't know." So I witnessed last week a parent picked up the book, looked at it, and flipped it upside down and put it back inside. And I wish I was busy doing like a what's it called? Having another parent come in to create an account with us, because that's what we're doing now. And I missed that opportunity to go up and say, "Well, hey, why did you do that for?" Or like to open that conversation. I don't know if they would be ready to have that conversation. It's something that I missed when I was doing my program. And right now, the reason why I joined this program, I know it's more for new graduates, but I'm looking to find a program because I do want to take the next step in finding where my educational goals are. Like, I don't know where to go at this point. I got my diploma, I got my ECL from Sheridan, just like I think it was Grace that was speaking before. I don't know where else to go, but even this new lens that you're talking about, that it's started to come into our homes and in our programs, and welcoming, like teaching these ideas to the community who may have these traditional ideas, right? And how do we go about it with respecting their culture ideas, as well as trying to say, you know what, this is what's happening today, and keeping the times that we have, and even having that conversation with them in terms of their children. What are their children's got to be talking about as well? So I just really wanted to touch upon that as well. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed this lesson today.
Thanks so much for sharing. And you remind me the a community of practice Rise Up. They're doing a book study on the feminist killjoy, and the author, they speak highly on how to be that killjoy, how to be willing to stay in the way of people, even when that makes you feel uncomfortable and makes other people feel uncomfortable too. So I will definitely recommend you to explore that community of practice happening. We had chapter 1 last week, and it was amazing. A lot of great ideas on how to be an ECE in this context that we're living right now. Thanks so much for sharing.
I think that's our time's about up. So I think that is about it for tonight, unless anybody has a final thought that they would like to add. Okay. Well, Jess and Camila and I would love to thank Lish and Jade and Grace for joining us. But more importantly, to each of you. Without you coming and wanting to find this space, we wouldn't have these sessions. I know Nancy and a few others have asked if we can do this again. We have a monthly meeting, and we will email it, and it will be on social media. Camila does a great job on Instagram to make sure that it's posted, and Jess as well with AECEO posting it there. One final thought: relationships. Relationships are so important. Reach out to the relationships that you need to fulfill you, to get you through the space that you're in. People in general, and you will be able to gauge, will want to help you, will want to be there for you, are ready to accept you at your most vulnerable, and willing to support you. So remember that. And we hope you join us in May. We'll make sure to give you plenty of notice. And it was such a pleasure having you here tonight. Thank you.